My name is Chikako O de Silva, and I'll be reading from my latest book, The Anatomy of Loneliness: Suicide, Social Connection, and the Search for Relational Meaning in Contemporary Japan, which is available from Amazon and the University of California Press website. This book didn't start off as a project on loneliness, but as a research project on suicide in Japan that gradually led to uncovering loneliness as a critical underlying issue. In 1998, suicide rates jumped suddenly and sharply in Japan, by 50% in some age categories, and they remained elevated in the following years. This caused significant alarm in Japan and raised many questions. Initially, the spike in suicide was seen as being caused by two things: Japan's economic stagnation and depression, particularly depression caused by factors such as unemployment. The spike in suicide was seen as being a problem primarily impacting men in their 40s to 60s who faced economic uncertainty and unemployment due to the bursting of Japan's bubble economy in the early 1990s. The picture was imperfect from the beginning, however. For one thing, the spike in suicide happened not only among working-age Japanese men, but also across multiple age categories, including adolescents, who experienced an increase in suicide of 50% in a single year. Second, the narrative of economic stagnation leading to depression, leading to suicide, didn't fit the subjective reports of those who were attempting or committing suicide. Nor did it easily account for the emergence of entirely new forms of suicide, such as internet group suicide. In 2003, I initiated the study of individuals who frequented Japanese suicide websites. I wanted to understand why suicide rates had spiked in Japan, as well as why a number of new forms of suicides were emerging, particularly internet group suicide, in which individuals come together online and then agree to meet in person to commit suicide collectively, despite being strangers. It didn't take me long to discover that the problems expressed by suicide website visitors were rarely about unemployment or work conditions. Neither were they about depression. Rather, the most common themes that emerged were loneliness, a lack of meaning in life, and a lack of feeling needed by others. None of these were common themes in the discourse on suicide taking place in Japanese scholarship or media. Yet, when I discovered these common themes among suicide website visitors, I realized that these same themes were emerging across Japan in various ways. They were turning up in books, films, television shows, and the new forms of companionship services that I called the commodification of intimacy. I realized that my research had to focus not just on suicide, but also on the deeper underlying issues facing young Japanese, especially the issue of loneliness. A number of social commentators have pointed to these underlying issues as problems affecting modern societies in general, not just Japan. In 2016, the Dalai Lama wrote in an op-ed for the New York Times. We all need to be needed. The problem is not the lack of material riches. It is a growing number of people who feel they are no longer useful, no longer needed, no longer one with their societies. In America today, compared with 50 years ago, 3 times as many working-age men are completely outside the workforce. The pattern is occurring throughout the developed world, and the consequences are not merely economic. Feeling superfluous is a blow to the human spirit. It leads to a social isolation and emotional pain, and it creates the conditions for negative emotions to take root.